Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Autism Stories. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. Autistic people are the true experts of the autistic experience, and Autism Stories is where we interview autistic people to learn from their stories, experiences, and get their insights. If you would like to be notified about each week's episode of Autism Stories, we suggest you subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform. We would also appreciate it if you could give us a positive rating and review, as it will help others to learn about autism stories. On today's episode, Aura Joy joins us to discuss being a content creator and studying radiology. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Aura, thanks so much for joining me today here on Autism Stories.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start off by learning about where does your story in the autistic community begin?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to let your listeners know that I script a lot of my talking portions in my content. So if I speak slow, I am speaking from my thoughts. And I will give you my answers as I've scripted them. It's a little bit easier for me, but I wrote down when I was born, right? At least that's how it should have been. But I didn't fully realize that I was autistic until about 2020. At that time, I was 23 and I had just lost my job during the COVID quarantine. And as like a lot of people, I was spending a lot of time on TikTok, where eventually I found a lot of AFAB, late diagnosed autistic people like myself, sharing their stories, sharing information. And I just learned more about it and then started doing my own reflecting and research. And yeah, the rest is my history.
Now, from my understanding, the past few years, you've kind of been coming to terms with being autistic. What have been some important things for you in that process?
One of the biggest things has been how I experience rest and stress and how I deal with that. I'm becoming a lot more comfortable with unmasking in social situations, whether that's in friend situations or family situations, and just becoming more comfortable with like setting myself time to relax and chill if I need it, or giving myself unlimited access to STEM toys and various accessibility tools. I think that's probably been the biggest part of the process, is just allowing myself those tools.
I always really enjoy talking to autistic people who are in the medical field because so often as patients, we as autistic people do not get the best medical care. Definitely doesn't don't get our needs met in those situations. So the more autistic people I think working in medicine, the better off we will be. You're currently in school studying radiology. What do you think are some important things that those that work in radiology should do to better support autistic patients?
Yeah, I think representation in all fields is super important. And as far as my field, I'm studying to be a radiologic technologist. So I'll be taking photos, x-rays, MRIs, that sort of thing. And that step in a process within a hospital setting can be very confusing for a lot of people. There's a lot of big machines, a lot of weird noises. You might be asked to sit in uncomfortable positions. So I think being as communicative as possible with your patients and letting them know, like, this is what's going to happen. If you need, say, ear protection, if it's too loud or something of that nature, letting them know ahead of time what the situation is going to be so that they can be like, okay, this is what I need in that setting.
Yeah, new machines that we've never used, new systems, new things are always very stressful. So the more direct
Mm-hmm.
and specific and clear that people can be, the better off we are will be in those settings. From what I understand, you have a special interest in content and video making. You had mentioned TikTok a little bit earlier. So, what's it about content and video making that's kind of grabbed a piece of your soul and hasn't let go?
Yeah, I think from a really young age, I realized that if I took a video recorder, I could capture my world in a way that I see it and experience it. And I'm self-taught as an editor, so I really love creating satisfying jump cuts to songs or beats, or just creating being able to create like cinematic beautiful shots is what really does it for me, and seeing the final product from all the work that I've done.
So I'm an old person, so content creation is something that I don't think I'm very good at. But what would you say for you is the biggest challenge for being a content creator?
Lately, right now, it's trying not to feel boring. In one of my recent vlogs, I talked about how I'm starting to feel like, well, I've always felt this way, but I'm realizing that I feel like a very normal person, which is funny to say, especially in this context. But compared to like bigger influencers who are constantly doing things or have like the PR packages, all of that, I just feel like a very normal person sharing my life. And sometimes that can be boring. Like, I'm a college student, I'm a gym rat, I'm a gamer, and I stay inside most of the time. But what I can provide in my content is connection and community, especially within the communities that I have.
Now, recently on social media, you talked about doing a 7 day hard. What exactly did that mean for you, and what did you learn from this experience?
Are you familiar with the 75-day hard?
I am not, so I'd love to learn more about all of
Yeah,
this.
it's kind of this trend where essentially the things that I've seen is that for 75 days you do 1 to 2 workouts a day, you have to eat healthy, you cut out something, you get your 8 hours of sleep or whatever. And it felt really daunting, the 75 days,
Yeah.
and I think a part of me didn't believe that I could commit to that long, so I decided to do a 7 day instead, which taught me that I could commit to that, and also that commitment and dedication isn't a linear process. There's going to be ups and downs, but you just have to try and keep yourself level and coming back to it any day that you can.
75 days from an executive functioning perspective seems like a lot.
Exactly. That's why I'm like putting it off, but maybe if I don't think about it too hard, I can make it, or maybe do 40 days or something.
Yeah, like even makes like me think like when people talk about like financial management and a budget and keeping a budget for 30 days, like that's a long period of time, even that.
Yeah, it definitely takes constant dedication and thought. And I think a lot of the times when we miss up some of those days, it can feel really daunting to get back to it. Like, we missed up, so what's the point?
Right.
But there is a point.
There's definitely a point. Now, as something on your Instagram I saw that I was intrigued about was a weekly report. Can you tell our listeners about this and in what ways that structure has been helpful to you in your life?
Yeah, so I am someone that definitely struggles with like object permanence. And especially throughout my life, I can just kind of forget things that I've done. I think that's why I take on content creating so hard, because I like to document my life. So I know what I've done. The weekly report is just this other little trend that I saw on TikTok originally. And essentially, you post what you're reading, what you're eating, what you're playing, what you're obsessing over, what you recommend, and what you're treating yourself to. Just as a way to like check in. And it made me feel really like nostalgic for almost like old internet times when there was a lot of like tag yourself in this or like tag what you do here sort of things going around. So I just thought it was fun.
It does sound fun, and I'm wondering, like, for me, just remembering to do stuff is a difficult thing because my memory is terrible. So I wonder if, like,
Hmm.
something like that could be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't even have to post it on social media. You could like record it in a journal at the end of the week, be like, oh, this is what I did. And, I'll look back on it, be like, that was fun.
Yeah, and get stuff out of my brain. Like, that's the I wanted
Yes.
to have something like that. I could just, like, post or something and put on a whiteboard,
Yeah.
like, just to kind of,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
remind myself and get out of my brain.
I love getting things out of my brain.
Yeah, I saw recently that where there was like a study that said there's a certain percentage of humans that don't like overthink or don't like they just don't think about stuff. And
Mm,
I can't even like imagine that at all.
yeah, I don't know what I would do if I wasn't able to think about the things that I do. I might think about them a little too much, but I think somewhere in there it adds to the attention to detail.
Absolutely. And how can our listeners learn about you beyond this interview?
Yeah. So my YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram are all Aura of the Forest. I make lifestyle content about my life, the highs and lows, my workouts, gaming, cooking, whatever else I want to share.
I guess I had one last question about your content in that
Hmm.
on TikTok, you obviously it's shorter video content, but on YouTube, you have some like really longer content over an hour. Is
Hmm.
is one easier to do than the other?
Yeah, I think personally, long form content for me is easier to do. With short form content, you have to be like very specific about what you're putting on. I like to ramble sometimes, so it can be hard to like cut things down into a shorter form. So on things like TikTok, I just like to do trends and like make fun videos and stuff like that. It's a little bit more lax as opposed to my YouTube videos. It's more in depth.
Aura, thanks so much for joining me here today on Autism Stories. It was great to get to know you a little bit.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
We always love hearing from you and would especially love to hear from you relating to this episode on what communities do you find connection in. And thanks so much to Aura for today's conversation. To learn more about Aura, please check out the link in the podcast description for this episode. Here at Autism Personal Coach, our clients are the experts, our coaches are the guides. The majority of supports for autistics are not helpful. They try to fix us, not support us. That's why many are confused when we say our clients are the experts, experts of their lived experience. Our clients are the experts for what has worked for them and about the things they need and want in their lives. Our coaches first listen to our clients and then ask thoughtful questions, offer resources, and strategize with our clients so they can get what they need to thrive. Would you want a guide in your life to coach you to help you to get the things you desire? If so, then visit autismpersonalcoach.com for more information. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Autism Stories, and if you did, if you could tell a friend, foe, or anyone you know about it so they could have the same enjoyable and educational experience as you when listening to Autism Stories, it would be very much appreciated. Until next time, I'm Doug Bletcher of Autism Personal Coach. Talk to you then.